yourself, the most fearless show in sports. Whitlock and Wiley, Mark Schlereth is back with us. Let's move to San Francisco, where a new report claims there is friction building between the 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan and general manager John Lynch, with the two not on the same page about the direction of the franchise. After a disappointing first two seasons together, Shanahan reportedly wants his own personnel guy to run the draft and free agency. But when asked about the report, the coach called it, quote, complete BS. Listen, Bleacher Report, I think, had this report. I think there's truth on both sides. I think at this time of the year, NFL draft, if there's not friction between the coach and the front office, there's a problem. And so there could be a problem and some friction. Yeah. That doesn't mean they want a divorce. That means it's draft season and they'll get over it.
But why this report this year when the last 2 years we've seen them in their media availability after the draft? They've both been present. So why this year? Why this year when you go out there in the draft, you get Nick Bosa, you get two receivers, Deebo Samuel, a versatile Jalen Hurd. Like, I don't see where it comes from. Like, everyone's praising the 49ers for their draft this year and all the moves they made in this offseason. It's a little mind-boggling that this report comes right now when it seems like everything's in alignment.
Yeah, well, having done several of their games last year, having been around both of those guys, known both those guys very well, part of having a great organization is there has to be some discourse. There has to be some disagreement. There has to be some argument. I was coached by one of the great offensive line coaches that ever has coached in Alex Gibbs. There were times when we went toe-to-toe, face-to-face, cussing each other out. But you know what? We both had the same goal and the same vision in mind. Sometimes we had different ways of getting there, right? But we had the same goal and vision in mind. Remember, these two guys worked a deal together, signed contracts that were identical to one another, that paid them both the same to go down the road for 6 years. And they both knew, by the way, going down this road, it wasn't a one-year fix, that it was such a mess that it was going to take several years. So they knew full well what they were getting into. They may disagree on some of the players. And remember, they had accolades last year for their draft, or 2 years ago. Reuben Foster is no longer there, right? Yeah. And Solomon Thomas has just not been, he's been a tweener. He hasn't really been an inside guy, and he hasn't been able to turn a corner from the outside as a defensive end. So they've had some issues and some misses in the draft, and that will create a little bit of tension during this time of the season. I'm with you. This is healthy. Disagreement is healthy.
Yeah, but the frustration we are hearing is probably an organization that's off schedule. Look, when your franchise quarterback goes out there and gets hurt, you throw the clipboard away basically that year. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for this team to go out there and live up to expectations when Jimmy G was hurt. So this year coming into the season, I'm not saying that they don't have disagreements, but for it to become report-worthy and kind of the loom over this franchise, I think it's excessive.
I think someone in the room saw these guys have a knockdown drag-out over a second, third, or fourth round pick. A coach loves a guy, scouting department doesn't. Somebody's going to win or lose the argument. Somebody's feelings are going to be hurt. And then somebody's seen that can misinterpret it or make more of it than what it really is. And again, in the moment, could Kyle Shanahan be like, F this guy? He wouldn't have had this job without me. We did this again. And you feel betrayed. I saw Dick Vermeil and Carl Peterson. Carl Peterson used to be the general manager of the Chiefs. They got crossways over Larry Johnson, running back out of Penn State. Carl Peterson wanted him for negotiating leverage against Priest Holmes. Dick Vermeil was like, man, we got a hell of an offense. I need this defensive player. Why are we taking Larry Johnson? Those two guys, nobody loves each other more than Carl Peterson and Dick Vermeil. They got a long history. But they went at it over this Larry Johnson deal. It happens.
Yeah, but shouldn't there be a minimum threshold where we report it? Like, look, Marty Schottenheimer with A.J. Smith. Yeah. And then you win 14 games and still get fired? Report that, please. You know what I mean? But this team is not even in that place in expectations or results. So everything else, like you said, is just of norm. And if we're going to report that as not normal, give me a little more to it.
All right, before we go, I'd like to say a word or two about Greg Popovich, who is negotiating a new 3-year contract extension to remain the coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Pop, despite his virtue signaling and woke rambling and his condescending sideline interviews, is one of my favorite people in all of sports. He cares about the game. He cares about winning. He cares about doing things the right way. When Popovich retires, it will symbolize the end of coaching in the NBA and the full takeover of AAU culture. The player-friendly league will officially become the player-run league. Some of you watching might see that as a good thing. I won't. Beyond competition, the essence of sports is an adult passing wisdom to a child, a mentor training a mentee to compete at the highest level. For me, Greg Popovich is Master Po from the 1970s TV show Kung Fu. Master Po trained actor David Carradine's character, Kwai Chang Caine, in martial arts and spirituality. Kwai Chang Caine used the training to right wrongs and injustice. Master Po was Chinese and represented a culture that revered the wisdom of the old. In America, we don't revere the old. We don't revere our elderly. We take them for granted and view their logic as outdated. We mock 70-year-olds like Pop by shouting, "Get off my lawn," or "I'm moving to Toronto." It's sad when it comes to winning. Greg Popovich is the greatest resource in the NBA. He's as essential as LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. With Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker gone, and Kawhi Leonard forcing his way out of town, it appears now no one wants to play for Pop. When we speculate about the top destinations for free agents, no one mentions San Antonio. This is crazy. It's the modern-day NBA, where coaching is reviled more than revered. I love to watch basketball, but I'm leery of its culture. Seasoned masculine leadership is not properly valued. Popovich is basketball's Bill Belichick. The Patriots head coach is just as much of a curmudgeon as Popovich, but talented, smart players still want to play for Belichick and are willing to submit to his old-school ways. Football, although reluctantly now, still values what an old-school man has to offer. Basketball doesn't. The young grasshoppers don't know what they're missing. More Speak for Yourself after this.